Hi, this is in Algebra. It's section 2-1. It's about adding rational numbers. What's really about, though, is adding integers and reminding you about integer operations, and the first part of integer operations is adding. So this is a review primarily of things you've already done in pre-algebra. The first thing is you're reminded of the property. It's called the identity. The book calls it this. The identity property of addition. And some books and people also call that the additive identity property. So either one is fine. The key is it's the identity property. Let's see if I can get this a little bit darker. I think that's a little bit better. And it basically says that if you add a number, we'll call it n, if you add to it 0, you get back that number. Okay? So as an example is 5 plus 0 is equal to 5. Okay? And another property that you should know is the additive inverse property, or we will call it the inverse property of addition. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, see if I can make that a little bit clearer. And this property basically says if you add a number plus its additive inverse or opposite, you get 0. So as an example, if I take 5 and I add to it its additive inverse or opposite, which is -5, I will get 0. So that is the inverse property of addition, and in your book you can see it stated in words. But basically is this idea is a number plus its what we call additive inverse or opposite is equal to 0. So the opposite of a number like 5 is -5. The opposite of -5 is 5. Okay, now we're going to add a little bit on the number line first, just to get an idea. Here's a number line, and I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say. And if I want to add 2 plus 3, I could start at 2 here. I'm going to move over 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to end up at 5, so my answer is 5. Okay, I know that seems awfully basic. Now, let's take a new problem, and let's say it's 2 plus a -3. So I'm going to go, let me make another number line here. And this one will go down negative a little bit here too. So I go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is -1, -2 here. If I start at 2, this is my starting point, and I'm adding a -3. Well, when I added a +3, I moved in this direction. If I'm adding a -3, I better move in this direction, right? Because it's negative. So I'm going to go in this direction, 1, 2, 3. I end up here, and my answer is -1. So 2 plus a -3 must equal to -1. Now, I could also do, let's do this one. I'll have to change my number line a little bit here. So I'm going to go, let's go 0, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. That should be enough. And I'm going to go -2 plus a -3. And actually, I'm going to go a little bit more here. -8, -9, -10, just so I have a longer number line there. So here, I have two negatives. I'm going to start at -2, which is here. I'm adding to it a negative number, so I should be going to the left. And I'm going to go 3, and I go 1, 2, 3. I'm going to end up here at -5. So a -2 plus a -3 is a -5. So one way to add integers is to use a number line like that. Now, we usually don't do that though. Instead, we use some rules about adding integers, and I'm going to go over those right now. And you would have had these in pre-algebra also. But right now, I'm going to go over the rule for adding integers. Make sure I'm on the paper here. So adding integers. So there's actually two rules here. The first one is if there's the same sign. So the rule for adding integers with the same sign is that you add their absolute value. So that's the first part of it. I'll put a little bullet item there. And the second part of it is give answer the sign of the numbers. So, if we have 2 plus 3, that better still equal 5, but let's see if it does under the rules. The absolute value of 2 is 2. The absolute value of 3 is 3. We're going to add those two absolute values and give them the sign of the numbers. The sign of the numbers is positive, so we get a positive 5. Good. Now we're going to add -2 plus -3. Well, we say we add their absolute values. So yeah, I could formally do this. Nobody really does this, but I could say the absolute value. I'm not going to put equal sign there because it's not. I'm just going to separate this. It's the absolute value of -2 plus the absolute value of -3. Well, that's equal to 2 plus 3. Most people just go directly to this. And that's equal to 5. So there we added their absolute values. Now we give the answer the sign of the numbers. Well, here's the two numbers, -2 and -3. Their sign is negative, so our answer is going to be -5. So again, we added the absolute values. So in other words, we just ignored their sign. So 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. And then we looked at the sign that they have, which is negative. Okay, so that's the easy way with the same sign. Now, with different signs, we're going to do the following. We're going to subtract the absolute values. Okay, or find their difference. And we're going to give the answer the sign of the number with the greater absolute, I'm going to scoot over here a little bit, value. So, some examples here. So let's say I have negative 2 plus a positive 3. So this is a different sign type of problem. Or that's much better focus, sorry about that. Different signs. I'm going to subtract their absolute values. So what that means, I take the bigger number, looking at absolute value. I'm not even going to put an equal sign because it's not. I'm going to take 3 minus 2. I'm just subtracting the absolute values of these two, and I get 1. And then I go back and look at these two numbers. Which has the greater absolute value? Well, 3 is bigger than 2, so 3 has the bigger absolute value. And it's a positive sign, so the answer is a positive 1. So here the answer is just 1. Okay, another example. Let's say I have 3 plus a negative 2. Well, if I have 3 plus a negative 2, I'm going to subtract the absolute values again. So 3 minus 2 is equal to 1. I look at these, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up. I'm going to say a plus 3 plus a negative 2. I was doing the same problem before. So a negative 3 plus a positive 2. I'm going to subtract the absolute values, and I get 1. Now I look back at these two numbers. I look back at negative 3 and look back at 2, and I say which one has the bigger absolute value? Well, it's 3 here. And it has a negative sign, so my answer is negative 1. So that's the basics of adding numbers with different signs. Now, in the book, they will also, this is about adding rational numbers, so they will also do the same thing with fractions and decimals and so forth. But you follow those same rules, plus you need to follow the rules for adding fractions and adding decimals. So I'm going to go through those rules just really briefly to remind you. If I have two fractions, if I'm adding two fractions, let's say I have 2/5 plus 1/5. And I know this is really basic, but I just want to go through it and make sure we're all on board. If they have the same denominator, I keep the denominator the same and just add the numerators. Now, if the denominators are different, so let's say I have 3/4 plus 5/12. Well, I need common denominators, so I'm going to find a common denominator. Here the common denominator is 12, the least common denominator. And so 5/12 is, of course, going to be 5/12. Here I go, 4 goes into 12 3 times, and so and 3 times 3 is 9. So again, 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 3 times 3 is 9. Or you can think of, how do I get 4 to 12? So I'm going to multiply it by 3. If I multiply the denominator by 3, I also need to multiply the numerator by 3. And so my 3 times 3 is up here, it's 9/12. Now I'm going to add the numerators, and I get 14. And my denominator stays the same. I can reduce this, which is 7/6, dividing top and bottom by 2. And I can change it if I want to into an improper fraction, which is 1 and 1/6. 6 goes into 7 one time with 1 left over, so it's 1 and 1/6. So that's the basics of adding fractions, if you recall. The basics for adding decimals is to line up the decimal. So, for example, if I'm at, well, I'm adding 3.4 plus 221.765. I'm going to take 221.765. I can take whichever number I want first. And then I go 3.4 because I'm lining up the decimals right here. Okay? I don't slide this all the way over here. I line up the decimals. And then I go 5, 6, 11, carry the 1, 5, 2, 2, bring the decimal straight down, and that's my answer. So you'll need to remember how to do those things. But the positive and negative numbers are exactly the same. When you see evaluating expressions, I think you already know how to do that. You know to substitute or plug in a number for a variable. And then the final thing we're going to learn in this section, and this is something that you'll get in like Algebra 2 more, is matrices or a matrix. A matrix, and they put it in here actually because it's a good way to give you a single problem and give you like 6 addition problems all in one or something like that. So a simple matrix may be, I have a row and columns of numbers, okay? So I might have 2 and 3 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 1, and I'm adding to that 4 and 7 and 12 and -3 and -7 and -5. And what I do with a matrix, and by the way, a matrix is spelled like this, and the plural is matrices, so the plural is matrices. What it means is that if I look at this, and it's like a spreadsheet, you know, like Excel or something like that, and this column, this row here, I have this cell, and corresponding to this cell is this cell over here. So what I'm going to do is add 2 plus 4, and then in my answer matrix here, I have 2 plus 4, that's going to be 6. On this one, I have 3 plus 7, that's going to be 10. Here I have 7 plus 12, that's going to be 19. Going down here, in this column, this row, I have an 8 here. The corresponding cell here is a -3. So 8 plus a -3, opposite signs, I'm going to subtract their absolute values. I get 5 and give it the sign of the larger one, which is the 8 here, the absolute value, larger absolute value is the 8. And so this is going to be 5. Here I have 9 plus a -7, that's going to be 2. Here I have 1 plus a -5, that's going to be a -4. Okay, so all of this is my answer here. And therefore I gave you like 6 addition problems. Now these matrices, I mean, it could be, you know, 7 columns by 5 rows. To add like this, though, they have to match up together. There's different things you can do besides addition in matrices, but we're just doing addition right now. So that's all about matrices. when you're all done for the homework, and I want you to do pages 59 through 61, and then do, actually I'll make it 60, and do numbers 6 through 56 evens. Okay, and with that, I'll be checking in to see if you have any questions, but you can begin that. And I will go ahead and shut this off now.